was a calm evening in Jamota, with the sun setting slowly, painting the sky gold. The busy streets gradually became quiet as people returned to their homes after a long day. The neighborhood was peaceful, filled with modest middle-class houses rich in Yoruba culture, where families gathered around their tables to share evening meals and stories. But this evening, something was different. A small crowd had gathered, their faces filled with curiosity and confusion. On the street lay a well-dressed man, clearly in his early 30s, unconscious and motionless. His fine suit and expensive watch contrasted sharply with the dusty ground beneath him. People paused and stared, unsure of how to help or what exactly to do next. At that moment, two women rushed forward from among the gathering crowd. The first was an older woman named Ayo, in her 50s, with a face marked by kindness and wisdom. Beside her was her daughter, Ife, a gentle woman in her late 20s with soft eyes and a caring spirit. Without hesitation, they approached the man, kneeling beside him and carefully turning him over to check if he was breathing. "Quick, Ife," Ayo instructed her daughter. "Let's lift him gently and take him home." Together, they managed to raise the unconscious man to his feet, supporting his weight between them. Slowly and cautiously, they carried him to their modest home just a short distance away. Their home was simple yet welcoming, filled with the warmth and care only family can provide. They laid the man carefully onto a bed in their spare room, making him as comfortable as possible. "Ife," Ayo said softly, her voice calm but serious. "Go quickly and call Nurse Bose. We must know if he is all right." Ife nodded, swiftly leaving the room to call the nurse. Shortly afterward, Nurse Bose arrived, checking him thoroughly and cleaning minor wounds on his hands and face. "Who is this man?" Nurse Bose asked curiously. "Does he have any identification?" Ayo shook her head gently. "We found nothing, not even an ID card or wallet. It seems he is a stranger here." Nurse Bose sighed softly. "He should be fine with rest and care, but keep an eye on him, and let me know immediately if anything changes." As Nurse Bose left, Ayo and Ife glanced at each other, silently agreeing that they would care for this stranger. Although they knew nothing about him, their hearts told them it was the right thing to do. That night, as Jamota slept peacefully, a mystery lay quietly in the modest home of Ayo and Ife, waiting patiently for morning to reveal its secrets. A whole week passed, and the stranger remained asleep. Each day, Nurse Bose visited, gently checking his health and reassuring Ayo and Ife. They hoped every morning would be the day he'd finally open his eyes. Then, one quiet afternoon, as the sunlight danced through the curtains, the man suddenly stirred. Slowly, his eyelids fluttered open. Confusion and fear filled his eyes as he looked around the unfamiliar room. He tried to sit up, groaning softly from dizziness. Hearing the sound, Ife, who was preparing food in the next room, dropped everything and rushed toward him. She nearly bumped into her mother, who had heard the same noise, and together they hurried into the stranger's room. "Please, be careful," Ayo said gently, stepping forward and placing her hand softly on his shoulder. "You've been asleep for a long time. You need rest." The man stared at them, breathing heavily. "Where am I?" he finally asked, his voice weak and uncertain. "You're safe," Ife replied gently. "This is our home in Jamota. My name is Ife, and this is my mother, Ayo." He repeated their names quietly, trying to calm himself. I don't understand. How did I get here?" Ayo smiled warmly. "We found you unconscious on the street last week, and we've been caring for you ever since. Nurse Bose has come every day to treat you." The man touched his forehead, struggling to remember anything before this moment. I don't remember anything," he whispered, his voice shaking with worry. "Not even my name." Ayo and Ife exchanged a glance, sadness filling their hearts. "It's all right," Ayo reassured softly. "You don't have to worry. For now, just rest and recover. The rest will come with time." "Thank you," he whispered quietly, his expression slowly calming. "I'm sorry for causing you trouble." "No trouble at all," Ive said, gently smiling. "You're welcome here." When he drifted back to sleep, Io and Ife sat together outside the room, quietly discussing their next step. "He has no memory," Ife said softly. "We can't just let him wander away in this state." Ao nodded slowly, her eyes full of compassion. "Then he'll stay. We'll care for him until he's well again." And just like that, it was decided. The stranger with no name or past would remain in their modest home. A new member had quietly joined their family, unaware that his arrival would soon change everything they knew. Days turned into weeks, and slowly the stranger grew stronger. Although he still had no memory of his past, he decided it was time to choose a name for himself. After a thoughtful pause, he finally spoke one morning. "I think I'd like to be called Olu," he announced with a shy smile. "Olu," Ao repeated warmly. "A good name. Welcome again, Olu." To show his gratitude for all they had done, Olu quietly sold the expensive watch he'd been wearing when they found him. He handed the money to Ao and Ife, thanking them deeply for their kindness. "You didn't have to do this," Ife protested softly, touched by his gesture. "It's the least I could do," Olu said sincerely. "You've both given me so much more." Soon, Olu began to help Ao and Ife in their corn business. Every morning he'd wake up early, joining them in the fields, helping to plant, harvest, and carry corn back home. At the market, he stood beside Ife, cheerfully greeting customers and attracting even more business with his friendly nature. Olu quickly became popular in Jamota. Women and young girls admired him openly, whispering and smiling whenever he walked by. His tall stature, handsome features, and warm smile made him impossible to ignore. One evening, while visiting the local bar run by Mr. Seun, Ife's father, Olu surprised everyone by identifying every drink he tasted, easily naming each brand without seeing the labels. "How do you do that?" Mr. Seun asked in amazement. "I don't really know," Olu admitted, laughing softly. "It just comes naturally." Impressed, Mr. Seun immediately offered Olu a job at the bar. "People will come from all over Jamota to watch you," he declared happily. Olu accepted the offer gratefully. Working at the bar gave him joy. He loved seeing the excitement in people's eyes whenever he showcased his unusual talent. His presence always brought cheerfulness and laughter to the crowd, making the bar more popular than ever before. In this simple way, life in Jamota became full and meaningful for Olu. Though his past remained a mystery, his new home with Ao and Ife had become a place of comfort, kindness, and friendship, at least for now. Excitement buzzed through Jamota as word spread about a special event at Mr. Seun's bar. Everyone in town eagerly awaited the evening of the alcohol tasting competition, featuring Olu as the star attraction. That night the bar filled quickly, bustling with laughter and cheers. Ao and Ife sat near the front, proudly watching Olu prepare for the contest. He stood confidently at the counter, neatly dressed and smiling warmly at the enthusiastic crowd. One by one, drinks were served to Olu. He carefully tasted each glass, effortlessly naming brand after brand. The crowd applauded loudly each time he guessed correctly, growing more impressed with every drink he identified. But as the competition continued, Olu began feeling slightly dizzy. The alcohol had started to affect him. Through the cheerful blur of faces, Olu suddenly noticed Ife sitting in the crowd, smiling softly and clapping for him. Their eyes met, and for a moment, Olu could not look away. He felt his heart flutter strangely, realizing for the first time how beautiful she truly was. Before he could dwell on his feelings, the lively chatter in the bar abruptly faded to silence. All eyes turned toward the entrance, where a tall woman dressed elegantly in a striking red gown stood, staring directly at Olu. She appeared to be in her early 40s, and her expression was tense. "Mr. Bala!" the woman called out, her voice sharp and demanding. "I've finally found you. You missed our wedding." The bar was quiet as everyone turned to Olu, who looked utterly confused. "I'm sorry," Olu replied hesitantly, trying to steady himself. "But you must have me confused with someone else. My name is Olu, not Bala." The woman, whose name was Ada, stepped forward, her face angry but also strangely hurt. "Don't play games with me, Bala. I've been searching for you for 4 months. You can't just walk away like this." "I really don't know who you are," Olu insisted gently. Please, just go. I don't want trouble here. Reluctantly, Ada turned and left, though her eyes promised she would not give up easily. After she was gone, murmurs filled the bar, and people quietly discussed the unusual scene they had just witnessed. Ify felt uneasy, a knot of confusion and worry forming in her stomach. She had so many unanswered questions. Who was this woman named Ada? Why did she insist Olu was Mr. Bala? And what did she mean about a missed wedding? That night, even as Olu tried to rest, thoughts of Ife's lovely face mixed with confusion about the woman in the red gown. He couldn't shake a strange feeling that his forgotten past was starting to catch up with him, one troubling memory at a time. The next morning, Olu woke up feeling exhausted and troubled by the previous night's events. As he got ready to head out to the bar, he found himself face to face with Ife's father, Mr. Seon, waiting impatiently outside the house. Olu, Mr. Seon began sternly. Who was that woman last night? She called you Bala. What's going on here? I really don't know, Olu replied gently. I wish I could answer you, but I have no memory of my past. Mr. Seon stepped closer, his voice rising impatiently. Don't tell me stories. She said you missed your wedding. Who are you hiding from? Why are you lying? I promise I'm not lying, Olu tried to explain, feeling increasingly dizzy as pressure mounted. I truly don't know. But Mr. Seon didn't stop. You're bringing trouble to my family. Tell me the truth. The stress became too much for Olu. His vision blurred, his legs weakened, and he collapsed to the ground. Olu! Ife shouted, running to him quickly. What have you done, father? Panicked, Ao and Ife rushed Olu to the local hospital, their hearts filled with worry. After examining him, the doctor told them Olu was stable but needed rest, emphasizing that he should not face further stress or questioning for a while. That night, angered by her husband's behavior, Ao confronted Mr. Seon. How could you treat Olu like that? He's been nothing but kind to us. Mr. Seon simply ignored her, refusing even to look at Ife or Ao. He left the house without another word. Later that evening, hidden in the shadows near the edge of town, Mr. Seon secretly met Ada, the mysterious woman from the bar. You were too impatient, Mr. Seon said angrily to Ada. Now he's suspicious. Ada stared coldly at him. I waited long enough. You promised me you'd handle this. He's lost his memory, Mr. Seon muttered nervously. I thought it would be easier. Well, fix it, Ada hissed impatiently, or you'll regret ever crossing me. As they parted ways, their hidden conversation remained unnoticed in the darkness. Olu rested peacefully in the hospital, unaware of the dangerous secrets unfolding around him. Far away from Jamota, in a sleek high-rise office in Lagos, Ada stood by the large window, looking out into the busy city night. Beside her stood James, a man whose face resembled Olu's, though his eyes were harder and colder. I don't understand how your kidnappers failed, James, Ada said bitterly. Bala should have been dead months ago. James tightened his jaw. They assured me he wouldn't survive. They promised he was gone for good. Neither noticed that outside the office door stood Jerome, the company lawyer, frozen in shock as he overheard every word of their conversation. Ada's voice grew tense. We need to find Bala and finish what we started, or everything we've planned is ruined. I'll handle it, James assured her. I'll send someone to Jamota. This time there won't be mistakes. Jerome, realizing the terrible truth, stepped quietly away from the door, his heart pounding. He knew he had to act fast. Bala, his boss, whom everyone believed dead, was alive and in grave danger. The next day, Jerome set out urgently toward Jamota. When he finally arrived in the small town, he drove slowly through the busy market, scanning faces anxiously. Then suddenly Jerome froze, his eyes wide in disbelief. Standing at a modest corn stall was Bala, alive, smiling and chatting warmly with a young woman named Ife. Bala, Jerome called out, stepping quickly out of his car. Olu turned slowly, confused. I'm sorry. Do I know you? It's me, Jerome, your company lawyer, Jerome said, approaching carefully.
You're Bala, CEO of Edge Tech in Lagos. No, Olu insisted gently, looking uncertainly at Ife. My name is Olu. You must be mistaken. Jerome noticed the scar on Olu's hand. How did you get that? An accident about 5 months ago, Olu replied. That's when I lost my memory. Jerome nodded slowly, finally understanding.
Listen carefully. Your real name is Bala, and your life is in danger. People close to you tried to kill you. Ife and Olu exchanged worried glances, stunned and fearful about what they'd just heard. Jerome paused, realizing he needed to approach carefully. There's much more you need to know, he continued softly. But right now we must keep you safe. As Jerome left Jamota to prepare his next move, he knew one thing clearly. He had to protect Bala at all costs and uncover the truth before Ada and James discovered he was alive. Over the next few days, Jerome made several visits to Jamota under the cover of friendship. He brought gifts, shared warm stories, and slowly earned the trust of Olu, Ife, and Ayo. They welcomed him into their home like family, grateful for his kindness and concern. One quiet evening, Jerome sat with them on the porch, the moon casting a soft glow over the yard. There's something I need to tell you, he said gently, his voice low and serious. Your real name is Bala Okoye. You're the CEO of Edge Tech in Lagos. You disappeared 3 months ago and everyone thought you were dead. Olu blinked, clearly shaken. Are you saying Ada was my wife and James is my brother? Jerome nodded. They betrayed you. They planned to kill you. I overheard everything. You were targeted because you discovered James was using company funds to move illegal weapons. You threatened to expose him. Days later, your car crashed and they left you for dead. Ayo gasped. Ife placed a protective hand on Olu's shoulder. You don't have to face this alone, Jerome added. But we need to leave Jamota. It's not safe anymore. The next day, Jerome was heading back to his car when he saw a familiar figure near the roadside. Mr. Sun. Their eyes met. Jerome immediately recognized him. He had been the one Ada paid off during the early stages of the plot. Jerome's heart raced. He quickly entered his car and drove off, knowing the danger was now closer than ever. Hours later, in a private office in Lagos, Ada sat with James when her phone rang. It's Son, she said, answering coldly. After a few moments, her eyes widened with rage. The lawyer visited Jamota. She stood up, grabbing her purse. We need to handle this, now. Later that evening, Jerome received a call from Ada, asking to meet immediately. Sensing a trap, he redirected his car to the company office, setting his phone to record before entering. The moment he walked in, Ada and James were already waiting, their faces pale with guilt and fear. How did you find out? James demanded. Before Jerome could answer, a group of men stormed in. They grabbed him roughly and dragged him outside. But Jerome wasn't finished yet. As the men led him away, he broke free in the chaos of Lagos traffic, vanishing into the crowd. Gasping for breath, he found a safe spot and called Ayo. Get out now, he warned. I'm sending an address in Lagos. Meet me there, don't wait. Ayo didn't hesitate. She and Ife packed quickly and woke Olu. As they reached the edge of the village, they turned back and saw smoke rising. Their house was on fire. Ife choked back tears. They found us. They pressed on, reaching the bus station just before midnight. The place was packed, and the crowd gave them a sense of safety. The bus loaded slowly, and finally it pulled out of Jamota. But halfway into the journey, the bus was stopped by a gang of bandits. The passengers froze in fear as the men prepared to search the bus. Just then, flashing lights and sirens erupted behind them. A police van filled with armed officers arrived, singing as they approached. The bandits scattered immediately, fleeing into the bush. The bus continued its journey safely, and by dawn, Olu, Ife, and Ayo reached the hotel in Lagos where Jerome was waiting. They had survived, for now, but the danger was far from over. That night, the air in Lagos felt calm. The hotel courtyard was quiet, with only the sound of crickets in the bushes and the soft breeze blowing through the trees. The moon was full, shining gently over everything. Olu couldn't sleep. His heart was full of fear, full of love, full of thoughts. He stood by the window for a long time, looking out into the night, then quietly stepped into the hallway and walked to Ife's room. He knocked gently. "Ife," he whispered. Inside, Ife sat up, already awake. She opened the door slowly. "Olu? Are you okay?" "Please, come with me," he said, his voice low. "I just need to talk, just for a few minutes." Still in her soft red nightgown, she followed him downstairs to the courtyard. They sat on a small bench under the moonlight, side by side. For a moment, Olu said nothing. He just looked at her, his eyes filled with emotion. "Ife," he finally began. "I know things have been hard. I came into your life as a stranger with no memory, no past. And since then, you've faced danger. All because of me." Ife shook her head, but Olu continued. "You've taken care of me, stood by me even when it didn't make sense. And now I know one thing for sure, memory or not, I love you. I really love you." He stood up slowly, took a deep breath, then went down on one knee. "I don't know what the future holds, but if we face it together, I know we'll be fine. Will you marry me?" Ife's eyes filled with tears. Her hands trembled. She covered her mouth, shocked. "I don't blame you for any of this," she said softly. "You didn't ask for it. And truthfully, I've thought about a future with you too. I just didn't know if you felt the same." Olu smiled, still kneeling. "I do. Every part of me does." She took a step forward, her voice shaking. "Yes, I'll marry you, Olu." They hugged tightly under the night sky. For the first time in a long while, their hearts felt safe, even in the middle of chaos. But the peace didn't last long. Just a few hours later, Olu's phone rang. He picked up sleepily. "Hello?" It was the hotel manager, his voice urgent. "Sir, we're very sorry to disturb you. There was a noise complaint from room 408. Olu sat up straight. "That's Ife's room." "Yes, sir. But when we checked, she wasn't there. The room is empty." Olu's heart skipped. "What?" He jumped to his feet barefoot and ran down the hall. "Ife!" he shouted, banging on her door. No answer. He grabbed the handle, locked. The manager arrived with a keycard and opened it. The room was neat, her bed untouched, shoes by the dresser, phone still charging. But Ife was gone. Olu's hands shook as he stepped back, panic rising in his chest. The woman he loved had vanished, just hours after saying yes. 15 minutes felt like forever. Olu paced back and forth in the hotel manager's office, his fists clenched. "Where is the CCTV? You said you were checking." "We're pulling it up now, sir," one of the staff replied nervously. Finally, the footage appeared on the screen. Olu leaned in, his eyes fixed. It was 12:07 a.m. The camera showed a man dressed in a hotel uniform walking up to Ife's door. He knocked once. Ife opened the door slowly. She didn't look scared. Maybe she thought it was a hotel staff member. But then, another man appeared from the side. He pressed something against her neck. Olu gasped. She struggled, only for a second. Then her body went limp. The two men carried her down the service stairs, quietly, quickly, gone. Olu stumbled back from the screen, shaking. They took her, and I was right here. By 2 a.m., Inspector Madhu arrived. A tall, serious-looking man with tired eyes. He looked like someone who had seen too much. "Mr. Olu," he said, taking out a notepad, "I need you to tell me, do you have any enemies? Anyone who might want to hurt you? Or her?" Olu hesitated. His head felt heavy. His thoughts were blurry. I don't remember much," he said quietly. "I lost my memory 3 months ago. They told me it was from a car crash." "Who told you that?" Madhu asked, raising an eyebrow. "My lawyer, Barrister Jerome." "Then I think it's time you call him." Olu picked up his phone and called Jerome immediately. Within the hour, Jerome arrived at the hotel, pale and worried. "Any news?" he asked. "She's gone," Olu said. "Taken from her room. I need to know the truth, now. No more secrets." "Who am I really?" Jerome looked at him, then sighed deeply. He reached into his bag and pulled out a sealed envelope. "What's this?" Olu asked. "Inside," Jerome said, "is a phone number. The only person who can give you the full truth." Olu opened the envelope. One number, no name. He dialed it. The phone rang. Then a voice answered, deep, rough, and cold. "Who is this?" "It's me, Bala. It's a long story." There was a pause. Then the man replied, "Bala?" Olu's heart dropped. The voice belonged to Chief Benson Okoye, his father. "You disappeared after the accident," the man continued. "We thought you were dead. But your wife, Ada, she never stopped smiling." Olu closed his eyes. "That's because she and James tried to kill me." He spoke slowly, the truth spilling out. "I found out James was moving illegal weapons with company money. I threatened to go public. Days later, my car crashed. Everyone believed I died, and they took over everything." Chief Benson was silent for a moment. Then he said firmly, "They won't get away with this. You're my son. We'll fix this." Just then, another message came to Olu's phone. It was a photo. Ife, tied to a chair, her eyes red, her mouth gagged. And under the photo, just 2 words: "Walk away." Olu dropped to his knees. Inspector Madu clenched his jaw. "This is personal. They don't want money, they want you to suffer." "Who?" Olu asked, already knowing the answer. "Your wife and your brother," Madu said. "Ada and James." The morning after the photo arrived, Olu couldn't eat. He couldn't sit still. All he could see in his mind was Ife, tied to a chair, her eyes filled with fear. Then around 8 a.m., another message came through. "Walk away and we won't kill her." Olu stared at the words for a long time. Then he stood up quietly, looked at Jerome and Inspector Madu, and said, "I'm going. I'll do whatever they want. I just want Ife safe." "You can't go alone," Madu said, shaking his head. "They'll kill her if I don't," Olu replied. "They want me. I'll give them what they want." Jerome stepped forward. "We understand, but let us protect you." That night, Olu walked into the abandoned hotel where they told him to come. It was dark, too quiet. One flickering bulb hung from the ceiling, swinging slowly. Olu's heart beat loudly in his chest as he stepped inside. Then he saw her wife. She was slumped in a chair, bruises on her arms, her head drooping. But she was breathing. "Ife," he whispered. She raised her head slightly. Her eyes met his. She looked weak, but her eyes lit up when she saw him. Suddenly, James stepped out from the shadows, his face cold. "You shouldn't have come." Ada appeared next to him, holding something in her hand, something metal. Her eyes burned with anger. "You ruined everything," she hissed. "We gave you a chance to walk away." "Don't do this," Olu said, his voice shaking. "Please, let her go. I came, didn't I?" James looked unsure now. He turned to Ada. "Maybe this is too far." Then Ada's phone rang. She answered. Her face froze. It's your father." James grabbed the phone. "Dad?" Chief Benson's voice came through, cold and clear. "You've betrayed your own blood. You and Ada will face the law. I'm watching everything." The call ended. Panic spread across Ada's face. She raised the gun, her hands shaking. Then bang! The doors burst open. Police flooded the room. Officers stormed in from every side, shouting commands. Ada dropped the weapon, screaming. James tried to run but was tackled to the ground. Olu rushed to Ife, pulling her into his arms. "You found me," she whispered weakly. "I will always find you," he said, holding her tightly. The next morning, the news exploded across Nigeria. Billionaire betrayed by wife and brother, rescues fiancé from kidnappers. People everywhere were shocked. Some praised Olu's bravery. Others couldn't believe Ada and James could do something so wicked. But Olu didn't care about the headlines. He only cared that Ife was safe and in his arms again. The courtroom was quiet, so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Everyone turned as Olu walked in, holding Ife's hand. She looked calm, but Olu could feel her fingers trembling slightly. The people who once tried to destroy their lives, Ada and James, were sitting just a few feet away in handcuffs. Olu stood before the judge and took a deep breath. He looked at Ada, then at James, and finally at the crowd. "I know everyone expects me to be angry," Olu began, "and maybe I should be. But I've learned something important." He paused, his voice steady. "If I keep holding on to the pain, I'll never truly be free. So today I choose forgiveness." Gasps filled the room. Even James looked surprised. His face, usually cold and proud, now looked unsure. Ada kept her head down, eyes fixed on the floor. "I don't hate you," Olu continued. "But forgiveness doesn't mean I forget. I'm letting go, for my peace, not for yours." The judge nodded slowly, clearly moved. "With the complainant withdrawing charges," he said, "this court has no choice but to dismiss the case. James and Ada Okoye are free to go." Olu didn't flinch. He simply turned to Ife and whispered, "Let's go home." 2 weeks later, away from the noise and news, Olu and Ife stood quietly in a small garden, surrounded by a few close friends and Ayo. There were no cameras, no fancy decorations, just love. Olu held her hands and smiled. "I never got to do this the right way." Ife laughed gently, tears in her eyes. "This is the perfect way." And there, under the soft morning sun, they said their vows. No drama, no fear, just two hearts choosing peace and each other. From that day forward, Olu and Ife stopped looking back. They didn't mention Ada or James anymore. Their focus was simple: happiness, and they finally had it. For a while, life felt peaceful again. Olu and Ife were happy, building a quiet life together. They laughed more, smiled more, and tried not to think about the past. Then one sunny afternoon, Olu heard the doorbell ring. He opened the gate, and there stood Ada. She was dressed in a soft blue gown with a shawl over her braided hair. She looked calm, even gentle. "I'm not here to cause trouble," she said softly. "I just want to talk." Olu stared at her for a moment. Then he sighed. "You have 5 minutes." They sat outside, far from the house. Ada folded her hands and looked down. "I've changed, Olu. I've been going to church. I started therapy. I just want peace." "Then find it somewhere else," Olu replied. Ada looked up quickly. "Please, just one visit. Let me say thank you to Ife for standing by you." Olu thought for a moment. Against his better judgment, he nodded slowly. "If Ife agrees, just one visit." Surprisingly, Ife said yes. "If you can forgive her, so can I," she told Olu with a warm smile. The next Saturday, Ada came over with a gift basket and a bouquet of flowers. She smiled sweetly, complimented the curtains, and hugged Ife a little too long. "You two are truly meant to be," she said with a strange tone in her voice. "So beautiful together." Later, they sat for dinner. Ayo served pepper soup while Ada offered to help with dessert. "Please, let me do something," she insisted. "I'll serve the fruit tart from the fridge." Ife nodded politely. "Okay, thank you." In the kitchen, Ada's smile vanished. She opened her purse and pulled out a tiny glass vial. Clear liquid. Deadly poison. Just a few drops on Ife's slice. Quick. Silent. She returned to the table and handed Ife the dessert with a wide smile. But just as Ife lifted her fork, Olu's phone rang. It was his father, Chief Okoye. "Olu," he said, his voice serious, "I need to warn you. Ada was seen buying poison in Surulere, something herbal that mimics heart failure." Olu's eyes widened. "She's here, right now. She just served dessert." "Don't let Ife eat it," Chief Okoye shouted. Olu dropped the phone and rushed back into the dining room. "Ife, don't eat it," he shouted. Everyone froze. "What's going on?" Ife asked, confused. Olu grabbed the plate from her hand and turned to Ada. "What did you put in this?" Ada stood up slowly. "Nothing, just fruit tart." But her hands were shaking, her smile faded. "I'm calling Inspector Madhu," Olu said. Ada didn't say a word. Within minutes, Madhu arrived. The dessert was taken for testing. Ada didn't fight. She simply smiled as they placed the cuffs on her wrists. I was never going to let her have the life I dreamed of, she muttered as they led her away. That night, the test confirmed it digitalis, a dangerous poison. Olu sat quietly, his hands on his head. I let her in. I trusted her. Ife took his hand. You believed in redemption. That's not weakness, it's your strength. This time, no second chances. Ada was charged and sent to prison, for good. And Olu? He learned a powerful lesson. Forgiveness is good, but wisdom is better. The rain poured gently over the cemetery in Ikoyi.
People stood under black umbrellas, their heads bowed. Even the sky seemed to be mourning. Chief Benson, Okoye was gone. Olu stood quietly at the edge of the grave, dressed in black. His eyes were hidden behind dark sunglasses, but his heart was heavy. Ife stood beside him, holding his hand. She was heavily pregnant with their second child. Twins. He wasn't perfect, Olu whispered. But he was still my father. Chief Okoye had been strong, proud, and distant. But when Olu needed him the most, after the betrayal by Ada and James, he had stood by his son. In his final days, cancer had taken his strength, but not his mind.
Promise me, the chief had said just before he died, don't let this family fall apart again, and take care of the company, or pass it to someone who can. Olu had nodded, unsure of what he would do. But now, standing by the fresh grave, he knew his decision. That evening, after the funeral, Olu sat on the veranda of the family home. The house was quiet. The guests had left. James walked up slowly, his face calm. You okay? He asked. No, Olu replied softly, but I'm here. They sat together in silence for a while. Then Olu turned to him. I want you to take over the company. James blinked. Me? You've changed, Olu said. You're not the same person from before. You're focused. You have integrity, and I trust you. James was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. I won't let you down. A week later, a small handover ceremony took place in the Okoye Holdings boardroom. Olu, dressed in a clean navy suit, stood proudly beside James. To our shareholders, Olu said, this is not about blood. It's about trust. And I trust my brother. James stepped forward and promised to lead the company with transparency and vision. The press called it the smoothest business transition in Nigeria. But Olu didn't care about the headlines. All he wanted was peace. Back at home, life changed in the best way. Olu and Ife welcomed their twins into the world. Ayo, and Zara, their little daughter Temi, now 2 years old, was full of energy and joy. The house was loud with laughter, toys, baby cries, and bedtime stories. It wasn't perfect, but it was beautiful. Olu often sat back and smiled. This, he would say, holding his babies, is what legacy really means. Meanwhile, James kept his promise. Under his leadership, the company grew stronger and more respected. He launched free community projects in their father's village, gave scholarships to students, and cleaned up the parts of the company that had become corrupt. One day he called Olu. I want to name the new business school after Dad, the Chief Okoye Institute of Leadership. Olu smiled. He'd be proud. I know I am. And just like that, the Okoye name began to shine again, not just in business, but in kindness and service. The family legacy was no longer built on power or pride. It was built on love and second chances. One evening, after a long day at work, Olu and James sat alone in their office at Okoja Ventures. The sun was setting outside, painting the sky with soft orange light. Olu looked out the window for a moment, then turned to his brother. James, he said quietly, do you remember the day I found out about you and Ada's secret? James looked down, guilt flashing in his eyes. I do. I've never stopped thinking about it. I still feel ashamed. I was so hurt, Olu admitted. I felt like I lost everything in one day, my family, my company, my peace. I was selfish, James said. I thought Ada loved me. I thought we were doing what was best for the company, but I was wrong. I betrayed you. There was a long pause. Then Olu said, "I forgive you, not halfway, fully." James looked up, shocked. "You do?" "Yes," Olu nodded. "You've changed. You've worked hard. You've earned back my trust." James swallowed hard. "Thank you, brother. Truly." Olu smiled. "You matter to me, James. You always have. You're my brother and I love you." It was more than words. It was healing. That moment was the true beginning of Okoja Ventures. The company grew fast, not just because of smart business, but because of the values it stood for: trust, second chances, and family. Olu and James focused on rebuilding broken places in Lagos. Old buildings, forgotten streets, abandoned schools. They gave people homes, jobs, and hope. They didn't just fix walls. They helped fix lives. Their story began to spread across Nigeria. News outlets called them the Forgiveness Brothers. Business magazines featured their journey, showing how they turned betrayal into something beautiful. At a big business awards show, Okoja Ventures was named Business of the Year. The crowd stood on their feet as Olu and James walked on stage together, holding their award. Olu stepped forward and said, "I used to think success meant proving people wrong. Now I know it means lifting people up, including the ones who once hurt you." Then James added, "We forgave, we learned, we rebuilt, not just a business, but our brotherhood." The crowd clapped louder. It wasn't just a celebration of business. It was a celebration of love, growth, and healing. Olu and James had shown the world that family isn't just who you're born with, it's who you choose to forgive and build with. It was a quiet night. Olu had gone out to buy groceries, just a simple errand. Ife was at home, playing with the twins while Temi scribbled drawings on the floor. Then the phone rang. It was the hospital. "Hello?" Ife answered quickly. "Please come immediately," the voice said. "Your husband, he was in a serious accident. We need blood urgently. His type is very rare." Ife froze. "Is he okay?" "He's unconscious," the doctor said. "We're doing our best, but we need blood fast." Within minutes, James arrived at the hospital, out of breath and worried. "I'll donate," he said without thinking. But after the test, the nurse shook her head. "I'm sorry. Your blood doesn't match." Panic filled the room. The doctor looked at James. "Do you know anyone else with the same blood type?" James paused. Then a thought hit him. His eyes widened. Ada. The name hung in the air like a heavy cloud. "She's in prison," James said slowly. "But she might be the only one who can save him." The hospital quickly contacted the correctional facility. Surprisingly, Ada agreed to donate, but under one condition. "I want my freedom," she said calmly. "If I give my blood, I want to leave Nigeria. Forever." The authorities agreed just this once. A quiet deal was made. Ada was brought in under heavy guard. She didn't say a word. She looked at Olu, unconscious, hooked up to machines, and then looked away. After donating the blood, she cleaned her hands, stood up, and said simply, "I've done my part." Before she left, she was handed a generous sum of money, part of the agreement. Without looking back, Ada boarded a flight and disappeared into the world. She was gone. Days later, Olu opened his eyes. Ife was by his side, holding his hand tightly. "You scared me," she whispered. He smiled weakly. "I came back. For you." The doctor walked in, smiling. "You're lucky, sir. Someone with your rare blood type saved your life." Olu nodded. "I heard, Ada." "Yes," the doctor said. "She's gone now. But you're going to be just fine." Weeks passed. Olu fully recovered, and life slowly returned to normal. He and Ife spent more time with the kids, laughed more, and loved more. Sometimes they thought about everything they had been through, the betrayals, the pain, the close calls. But they didn't stay in the past. They had each other. They had peace. And that was more than enough. They built a home filled with warmth, joy, and second chances. And so Olu and Ife,
After all, the storms lived happily ever after.